This is going to be an extremely busy month. I have to watch 104 soccer games, follow the pregame, the postgame, yell useless opinions at the TV. It's a lot. So I knew that when it comes to screening for colon cancer, the choice was clear. The Cologuard Plus test. It can be used at home and can only take 15 minutes, so I can do it during halftime and not miss any action. If you are 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a prescription at Cologuard.com.
Welcome to a new era of baseball's great spectacle, the T-Mobile Home Run Derby, live on Netflix. The biggest sluggers in baseball put their talents to the test on All-Star Weekend. Raw power meets star power. Big swagger meets bigger slams. And you don't swing to make contact. You swing to make history. Watch the T-Mobile Home Run Derby live on Netflix, Monday, July 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
We're going Citizen Vigilante on some Birds of War, and we're taking some minions and monsters to see Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Adam Ball, and this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom! Groovy.
Hello and welcome back then to another week of Off Screen. So this week we've got loads of new movies to talk about. There is one in particular that I'm looking forward to Van's opinion on, and that is Minions and Monsters. Because my 7-year-old son, he loves a minion. He loves a minion.
Of course he does. He's a human child. Of course a human child loves the minions. Who doesn't love the minions? Mind you, I know people who don't like the minions. Are you a Minions guy?
Well, yeah, I've enjoyed all the Minions. I mean, they're just funny and fun, aren't they? And cute.
I will let you. I'll give you a little preview of a conversation. Something we have to mention later. But the new Minions movie does open up a massive continuity hole as far as like where they were in history. And it's but anyway, Twitter is obsessed with it this week. But I'll get to it, okay? Because there's a whole thing they set up in one of the previous movies to sort of, put them somewhere, and the new one kind of makes them not there, and it's it opens problems. But that's beside the point. We got other things to talk about in the meanwhile, haven't we?
We have. So we'll look at Minions and Monsters a bit later, and Birds of War is next. But as always, we're going to start the show looking at the top 10 UK and Ireland in the movies, in the cinema at the moment. So, well, you did say it was going to hang on in there, and it's still there. Just number 10 is Michael. 11 weeks now, which is probably the longest-serving movie in the top 10. In fact, it is. And it's made £52.7 million.
That's some impressive bank. You got to give them that. And also, the film is now out on digital. So I would imagine that literally every one of these fanatical, or multiple viewing audience members who've been hitting up Michael, they must all own it on digital by now, surely. I also want to point out, you've had access to it on digital for at least a week, and you haven't gotten around to it yet. What was it you watched, though? You watched something last week. What was it?
Blimey, I've lost track. I watched something random that a friend of ours, Johnny, said put this on the other night. What was it? I forgot what it was called now. Have you got access to what I've watched? Because it's a really random...
No, I don't offhand, but I could pull the WhatsApp, but I'm not rifling through our text. But remember you watched something that was quite recent and you thought it was brilliant. Like, yes, I told you it was brilliant. But yeah, Michael, I'm shocked you haven't watched it yet. Like, amazing willpower or just you're busy. But you have access to it in your home now. You can finally see it. And do you know what? I need you. Just let's pray that this stays in the top 10 another week, just so that we can get your opinion on it. Because I personally am quite annoyed that this week I finally got to see The Devil Wears Prada 2, and it's not in the top 10.
Oh, no!
Oh, bloody finally, right?
We'll have to do a section next week just on that, just to catch up, just so that everyone knows.
I mean, I'll tell you real quick that actually the whole, it's about protecting journalism and influencers be damned thing. That's actually infinitely more on the nose in that film than I thought it was. And boy, did somebody in the marketing department drop the ball there. But that has nothing to do with Michael. Michael is, it's a boilerplate box-ticking cosplay Wikipedia movie that happens to stop about a third of the way through the Wikipedia page. I should imagine it's a lot shorter than a third of the way through the Michael Jackson Wikipedia page, if we're being honest, but there are many subpages on that page. Look, as we can ascertain from the amount of money the thing has made, anyone who wanted to see Michael has seen it. I don't think there's anyone, with the exception of yourself, There's literally no one who wants to see Michael who hasn't. And I think of those people, their minds are now pretty set in stone. I wanted to see it. My expectations were like, I went in open-minded. I didn't quite know how that was going to go. And the answer was a lot safer and a lot more sanitized than I would have expected, but also completely lacking in depth or nuance. So, but hey, it's got those cool costumes and concert recreation scenes in the music videos, so I guess some people are getting what they paid for.
Yeah, well, that's at number 10, still hanging in there. At number 9, you definitely haven't seen this, surely. Les Liaisons Dangereuses.
You mean Les Liaisons Dangerous? The NT Theatre Live thing. I do know all about this, actually, because I happen to be a fan of Dangerous Liaisons and its 1999 adaptation, Cruel Intentions. It has now been adapted for the stage again. This stars, I think it's Aidan Turner. And the reason I know this is because my friend Matt Turner, another film critic, is very into this. Like, he went and saw the stage production. He's seen every version of it. He's a very big fan. There was a film version called Valmont, actually, that I've never seen. I've always wanted to. Never seen that one. I think that's Colin Firth. I want to say that's Colin Firth, Valmont, but I will watch it and report back because I'm a big fan of this. I would love to see this stage production, actually, because I'm a big fan of the story, much like Matt Turner is, although not quite as big a fan, obviously.
At number 8 this week is Backrooms. That's been out for 5 weeks now. Just nearly 12.5 million quid for that.
Obviously, a very profitable film for what it cost me. So I'm reasonably sure this was made for only a couple of mil. And obviously, it's gotten its fans. It's kicked off. It's kind of properly solidified the idea of the YouTuber turned horror filmmaker, which has been quite a trend over the last year. If you look at Iron Lung, if you look at Obsession, and then this, and it's in the film news today at time of recording that there's, I think it's Twin Head or something like that, is another creepy pasta thing from YouTube that they're sort of trying to spin into a film project because of the success of these films. I don't personally think Backrooms is that great. It's a great calling card, for a clearly exciting new filmmaking voice, but the film on its own merit, I don't think is particularly that great. Very well made, great performances though.
All right, well, that's at number 8 this week after 5 weeks. At number 7, Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War, The Calamity. That's been out a week, and that's sitting on 210,000 at the moment. I don't think I've heard of that one.
No, last time I checked, 1,000-Year Blood War, The Calamity was what some people call Gaza, but this is a different thing. This is anime, I believe, so of course it wasn't press show, and I haven't seen it, couldn't tell you a thing about it. I'm not an anime guy. I've touched a boob, one of those things.
Yeah. Scary Movies at number 6, 4 weeks. That's nearly made 9 million quid.
Do you know, I'm still laughing at the same jokes from this movie that I was when I actually saw it. Like, I say jokes, there's a lot of the big, parodies of the movies, and these don't contain jokes, notably the Terrifier sequence and things like that. But actually, the funniest joke in it is the Ma thing, largely because it requires you to actually remember the movie Ma, which surprisingly few people do, I have noticed. But you know what? It's for the fans. It's kind of like the movie that's currently at number 4, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's for the fans. This is not for newcomers. And I think if we're talking about trying to get the next generation, like Gen Z, into a scary movie like sequel, their fuzzy little heads will explode because they ain't ready. You know what I mean? Like, it's not for them, is it?
No, absolutely agree. All right, then, we're in the top 5 now. Obsession is heading up the top 5 after 7 weeks. 16.5 million quid that's made so far.
Did hit digital this week as well, and as expected, near instantly rocketed to the top of the digital charts. Just induced an entire new wave of Indie Navarrete memes, of Freaky Nicky memes onto the internet, now in shiny HD. I haven't rewatched it yet. I'm looking forward to doing it this weekend because I do think it's one of the year's best films so far, like hands down, one of the top 5 of the year, easily so far. Even though, like I say, it's part of the YouTuber turned horror filmmaker trend. It is, for my opinion, an adaptation of the season 2 Buffy episode Bewitched, Bothered, Bewildered, although apparently owes more of a debt to the Simpsons Monkey Paw, Treehouse of Horror episode, which I completely see. But, the takeaway here from this movie is, first of all, original movies still have a place in this economy. People will go to an original movie that has no stars, that has no big name director, that just has a cool concept. And I find that reassuring. I think Curry Barker is an intriguing, exciting new voice, much like Kane Parsons and Backrooms. But the star here is Indie Navarrete, who, is going to be I think is just going to easily be the breakout actress of this year.
Were you a Jackass fan when you were younger?
Why, yes, Mr. Bull, I absolutely was a Jackass fan. I love it when British people say
All right,
Jackass. I love it. Honestly, love it. Love it when British people say Jackass. Kerbo does it along. Oh, so I saw Jackass. You're like, really, Mark?
I'm from Oxford, darling.
I'm a Yorkshire boy, I can't help it. But also, grew up around a lot of Americans. I was a Jackass fan in the original, like, 1999, 2000 MTV era as a Jackass. I take it you're a Jackass fan.
I loved them up until the point when they got to the, like the Portaloo stuff, and because I got really bad gag reflex. I just couldn't handle that.
That's what I'm in it for. The sicker the better when it comes to Jackass, which I'm now going to call it forever. You have inspired me. It's now Jackass forever. I haven't seen the new one, sadly, Best and Last, number 4, because it's a Paramount movie, and you know where I sit on access to Paramount movies. And the best part is I think they know darn well that I would be the first one in line for a new Jackass movie. I will see it. I have not yet.
All right, well, in the top 3, Disclosure Days at 3, that's been out for 4 weeks so far. That's nearly on 11 million quid.
I mean, I can see the, why it would make money, because it's, a Spielberg movie. Like, his name carries a lot of weight. Spielberg. We forgot about that one. Yeah, Spielberg, yeah. And it's kind of like Tarantino in that way. There's very few directors you can sell a movie to the public on. And they are basically Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, Martin Scorsese, and Steven Spielberg. They're basically the 4 that you can outright sell a member of the public on. You can see this movie, it's the new Quentin Tarantino. They will go and see it. If you say, there's a new Spielberg movie, people go, oh, well, now I know he's one of the best filmmakers. I must go and see that. And that's, my theory that if you put a gun to the head of the average person on the street and ask them to name a film director, it's going to be one of those 4. I think this kind of conclusively proves that one, because the film itself is not great. The word of mouth around it, not brilliant. And to be honest, its money-taking is not really that impressive for a Spielberg movie, but it's 2026, so it's impressive versus every other movie, you know what I mean?
Okay, the top 2, or the Supergirl fans have been out, because Supergirl's at number 2, only a week, and £2.7 million.
I know you're a big fan of the 1984 Helen Slater Supergirl movie. I discovered something horrifying about that movie earlier today, and this will blow your mind. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm curious what your answer will be. How old do you think Helen Slater was when she starred as Supergirl?
Ooh, blimey. From the last time I saw it, I was probably about 10. So at the time, I'd probably say, 23.
18. She was 18 when she played Supergirl. Yeah, you know that 80s thing where a teenager looked about 35, as opposed to now where an 18-year-old girl would look like a 15-year-old. Yeah.
And that explains her kind of, I guess,
Not
innocent
aging.
persona within that movie.
It also explains why she's barely aged. Because I remember looking up her age when you were asking, thinking, she's really not that old. And then you're like, oh, yeah, maybe it's because she was quite young when she was Supergirl. I now know that. The new movie, which she has come out in support of, it's worth noting, has faced an immense backlash this week, which is undeserved. I think the film is perfectly good, but it is decidedly mid-tier. It's not a patch on Superman. It has its moments. I think it falls apart any time they try to make Jason Momoa into a thing, because he's just showing up to be Jason Momoa. But I really like Millie Alcock as Supergirl, as Kara. I think she's great in this. I think she is a find. And I'm really looking forward to seeing more of her in this franchise. Like going forward, she's going to be in the Superman sequel next year, apparently. Man of Tomorrow, it's called. She's in that. So, and also it gave me more Crypto. I need more Crypto the Superdog in my life. I don't think anyone can argue that one. Everyone needs more Crypto in their day.
Absolutely. Apart from Superman. So, number 1 this week is Toy Story 5. Of course, that's been out a couple of weeks now. That's nearly on 30 million quid. That's pretty good for a Toy Story movie. I mean, we expected it.
I mean, like I said to you, we knew last week, and the week before we said as well, like the minute Toy Story 5 opens, it's straight in at number 1. Probably going to be, probably the highest grossing movie this year, if not, it'll be in the top 3. And it gives everyone what they came for. You know what I mean? It's just a Toy Story sequel, and it's the 5th one of these. Like, you know what you're getting by movie number 5, unless you're in the Fast and Furious series, in which case you get the best one of the whole series. But, this is the toys' take on tech. It has been taken apart by some critics as being a bit cowardly as regards its handling of tech. Also for being easily the most, what they seem to perceive as the most unnecessary one of these. I think the fourth is less necessary than this. And I got my tears out of it. You know what I mean? I got my favourite characters back. I got them taking on, an Amazon tablet, effectively. And I got to cry my eyes out at the end. From a Toy Story movie, what more can I possibly ask for? And given that box office number, I think a lot of families, I think a lot of birthday parties and families and extended family and getting the grandparents together with all the grandkids, I think a lot of people seem to have agreed with me on that one.
Right, well, that's the box office top 10 for this week. Next, we're going to look at a brand new movie. It's a documentary, and you know what I'm like with documentary. I love watching anything I feel like I'm going to learn from. So I'm just going to read the synopsis to this because this drew me in. It's the love story of London-based Lebanese journalist and Syrian activist cameraman as told through 13 years of personal archives across revolutions, war and exile. Let me leave you with that thought and we'll see what Van thought about it next.
When it's time to scale your business, it's time for Shopify. Get everything you need to grow the way you want. Like, all the way. Stack more sales with the best converting checkout on the planet. Track your cha-chings from every channel, right in one spot. And turn real-time reporting into big-time opportunities. Take your business to a whole new level. Switch to Shopify. Start your free trial today.
¿Qué hule? ¿Me extrañaron? Aquí tienen a Aurelio.
Esta es la saga más famosa de la televisión hispana.
Soy indestructible, imparable.
Y su banda sonora se escribe con balas.
Te gusta que te vean, que te aplaudan. Y eso está bien. Alguien tiene que ser el payaso. Pero cuando falles, que vas a fallar, no va a haber segunda vuelta.
Hoy vas a pagar con sangre. El Señor de los Cielos. Temporada final. Martes 7 de julio a las 9:08 Centro por Telemundo y Peacock.
Hello and welcome back to Off Screen then. Two new movies to talk about. We're going to look at the new Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie in a moment. I'm really interested to hear what Van has to say about that. But before that, we're going to dive into an Arabic documentary. I mentioned earlier what it was all about as far as the synopsis goes. And reading that synopsis really drew me in, Van. It sounds like it's quite an interesting documentary.
It did me as well, actually. It was quite a good concept. I can't really... Because I think what you just spelled actually is the IMDb synopsis, isn't it? It's the BBC, London-based BBC reporter. I think, did you say she was Lebanese? She's Lebanese originally. Her name is Janae Boulos. And her eventual partner, Abdik Al-Qaeda Habak, who was a in-the-field war correspondent in Syria in the mid-2010s. He was the guy that his eventual partner would contact, for the footage. We need someone on the ground. They're asking in the newsroom, like, do we know anyone there? Can you send us some footage? Things like that. And over the course of the following 13 years, they would work quite closely together. They would form a personal relationship, would lead to a romance. They would eventually get married, etc. And it is about their lives from their own perspectives. Like, it's their footage that they have both contributed, complete with their own text messages, voice notes, things like that, which are kind of overlaid and part of the edit. So, intriguing enough idea. Not brilliantly pulled off, if I'm honest, because although the story is conceptually interesting, the execution of it is not quite there to do it justice. Like, it's one of those things, okay, I'm seeing a lot of important stuff and, the real world events are more interesting, kind of thing. Your romance feels kind of tacked onto this. Like, the Syria stuff I'm more interested in than, you getting to know this guy through the Syrian stuff. But, I mean, as far as a pair of, like, camera-friendly kind of, presenters go, especially, ones who are actually a couple, they're intriguing suspects, but again, conceptually rather than in executions. There's not really much more to say than that. Like, I would genuinely watch this for the things they witness and the things they live through. But the selling point of this is all anchored around their relationship and their romance is way less interesting and way less engrossing in that. Which I do think is a real shame, because there was a chance to do, with that concept, there was a chance to do something amazing here. And instead, you get a really good war documentary, but a really tacked-on romance one.
Well, if that's taken your fancy and you just want to make sure for yourself, if you like it or not, and you fancy going to see it, you can, because Birds of War is in cinemas from today. Right then, next, Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. And now at a first glance, you might think this is a documentary about Nirvana, But it's not Van, is it?
Well, it's not. It's nothing to do with Kurt Cobain. It is. There is a TV show, I believe, that this spins out of. Now, I confess I have not watched it. It's a Canadian, I believe it's a Canadian-made TV show called Nirvana, the band, the show. Nirvana with 2 N's, incidentally, so you don't actually confuse it. And it stars, his name is Matt Johnson. Matt Johnson I knew from the Blackberry movie about 2 years ago. He's also directed this, and he's one of the 2 guys who's involved. There's also Jay McCarroll, who's his sort of sidekick in this comedy troupe, and they've co-written it together, they star in it together. And they are Nirvana, the band, a Toronto-based kind of effectively garage band. They're very Bill and Ted in that, they've got their grand plan for the big time, but they've never actually bothered to record a song type thing. You remember that Bill and Ted kind of idea at the beginning? It's like, when we play Wembley Stadium, etc. We've got to learn to play first. That kind of thing. And they're obsessed with the idea of playing a gig at this Toronto-based venue, the Rivoli. And this starts in 2008. The movie starts in 2008 with them trying everything to get a gig at the Rivoli. Flash forward, to 2025, 2026. I think it's 2025 when they filmed it. Matt Johnson's character, he's actually Matt. He is Matt. They are Matt and Jay. Yeah, sorry. Matt and Jay play Matt and Jay, like fictionalized versions. Decide to come up with a new way to get a gig at the Rivoli. And Matt's idiotic idea is to convert an RV, like a big American-style recreational vehicle, camper van type thing, using the genius ideas of Back to the Future, convert it into what he thinks is a time machine, complete with a flux capacitor, onto which he immediately spills, and stop me if you remember this, a bottle of Orbits. Remember Orbits? Remember the bottles of Orbits? You used to have the little bits in them. It was like it came in a glass bottle, and it was a clear kind of fizzy drink, and it had little kind of a boba tea style bubbles in it that were usually blue or flavoured, something like that. They stopped making it years ago, but that's one of the gags.
I remember.
So because he spills this bottle of Orbits onto their flux capacitor, their time machine actually works and sends them back to 2008, where they find themselves accidentally inserted into their own lives and effectively have to avoid themselves Back to the Future 2 style, only for Jay to then corrupt the timeline, much like a certain Mr. Tannen did when he decided to become Donald Trump in a dystopian alternate universe, otherwise known as our present day. And this leaves Matt forced to have to go back in time again and undo everything. That's the concept. And when I tell you I picked a clip especially for you, I will tell you they cut this off when they did Not Me, and that's part of the joke. So enjoy this clip from Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie.
This is really all coming together.
Right.
This is just like Back to the Future. This is insane.
There'd be all the...
You can't, no, you can't do that. That's very copyrighted.
Well, if you could just go...
This is going to be a copyright nightmare. Like if you're watching this in theaters, thank your lucky stars, because this is going to be the only screening of this ever. 10,000 gigawatts! Dr. Emmett Brown. Come on!
Do you know, that reminds me of me and you before we go live on this podcast.
Very much. And that is the vibe of the movie. Like, don't get me wrong. This has absolutely no mass appeal whatsoever. Like, you are not sure. Literally, I watched this on a screening week. My mum was in the room at the time. And her face she didn't have to say anything. Her face spoke volumes. It was very much, oh God, what crap are you watching now? Type face. And she's seen me do this job for like 16 years now. So she's kind of used to seeing some, as she would describe, crap. For me, I actually thought this was really funny. I think this has got a lot of charm to it. Not mass appeal charm, obviously, as I say, but I think this is something that will really work for people that like things like Workaholics, or to a lesser extent, The Lonely Island, things like that. The Please Don't Destroy fans, if you know Please Don't Destroy, the comedy troupe who are currently, I think, on SNL, this is very much the same kind of thing. In fact, they had a movie last year as well. In fact, it was this year. Treasure Hunt one, I think, with Conan O'Brien in it. This, I think, is a more successful movie than that was. But it's not a patch on, for instance, the golden, kind of winner of all these, which is basically anything The Lonely Island put their name to. I do think the characters are quite likeable, though. I think their particular shtick, their very Canadian humour, works very well, because with Canadian humour, you can push it too far and you wind up with Letterkenny or Shoresy, or you can, simplify it and you wind it with Seth Rogen and Jay Baruchel. This sits about in the middle, I would say. So it's halfway between, Shoresy and Jay Baruchel, somewhere in there. Goon would actually be a better one to bring into. If you know the Goon movies, that would probably be down the Jay Baruchel end. But I think this is very funny, and I think for its unashamed, unabashed, surprisingly copyright-friendly abuse of Back to the Future, I know that you will enjoy the hell out of this. It will feel 100%. It will feel so directionless at times, it does, but you're kind of so engaged with these just maniacs, these lunatics just going about this shtick, that you run with it. You absolutely run with it. And also, it's not a terribly long movie. It's 100 minutes and something like 8 minutes of those are credits. So it's a 90-minute comedy sketch, apparently, that's basically riffing on, what if you did Back to the Future 2 in Toronto in 2008, and your big Johnny B. Good moment was the Black Eyed Peas singing Let's Get It Started. Well, it's not, it's the other version, but you know what I mean, You know the version I mean, don't you? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The one we don't play on radio. The one we don't. Yeah.
I know which one you mean. I think this is up my street. Like the comedy that from that clip you showed, especially, it kind of reminds, like I say, it reminds me of me. So I would definitely enjoy this. Nirvana, the band, the show, and the movie is out in cinemas from today if you fancy a bit of a giggle. Right then, still to come, we are going to look at Citizens Vigilante in a moment. But next, the Minions and Monsters movie. We'll see what Van thought of that in just a second. Stay there. Hello and welcome back to Offscreen then. We are diving straight into our new movie, our next one of the week, and that is Minions and Monsters, which I'm really keen to find out about because, as you know, I've got a 7-year-old, nearly 8-year-old son who loves Minions. Is this movie any good?
Well, it's a Minions movie. Of course it's good. I mean, it's worth noting, I think the Minions movies are infinitely stronger than the Despicable Me movies. Because I'm one of those people where when they started announcing they were going to do a Despicable Me 2, something like 15 years ago now, my honest response was, why bother? You said everything you need to say in the first one, just make a Minions movie. Because the only thing anyone really cared about from the first movie, I actually think the first Despicable Me is fantastic. But I do think that's all I ever needed to see of Gru and the girls. That was all I ever needed to see. I didn't need the rest. They had told the perfect story, and the Minions were the perfect sidekick. So if you need to do more, just do Minions things. And it took them, I think they did number 2 and then Minions, the first Minions movie in 2015 was Minions. Which, incidentally, I will just point this out, which did set up the idea that the Minions had existed throughout history in different tribes, and they simply trolled all over the globe looking for the biggest, baddest, bad guy, boss, the big bad boss that they could serve. And they went amongst history's worst villains to do this. And that after the Napoleonic, the attempt of the Napoleonic invasion of Russia in 1812, they went and resided in a cave until 1968. That is what we are told in 2015, right? In 2015 in Minions, that's what we got told. They were in a cave from 1812 to 1968. And I bring this up specifically because this movie, the third Minions movie, establishes that actually, no, they didn't. They didn't, in fact. The cave never even gets mentioned. They actually just kept wandering around until they happened upon late 1920s, early 1930s Hollywood, where, because it was the silent film era, the Minions and their just natural ability to take an ungodly amount of physical punishment became absolute rock stars of the silent film era as it was starting to transition into talkies. In this mix, we have 3 specific Minions, James, Henry, and Ed, who form a sort of core trio who split off from the rest when they are sort of, they're told, look, you can't do talkies, we don't need you anymore. And the rest of them go off looking for another big bad. 3 of them remain behind and one of them, James, who's always been the sort of creative one doing his sketches of everything they do, decides he wants to make a monster movie. But how do you make a monster movie with, as James puts it, kaiju? How do you make one with kaiju? Well, the short and easy answer is you get a magic spell book and you conjure the monsters. Which, given that this is being done by Minions, you could probably imagine does not go that well. And all of this is being done with the aid of their first conjuring a monster who seems to be quite friendly and charming named Goomy, and he is the subject of our clip. So have a listen. This is Goomy in the new movie Minions and Monsters.
By the way, I'm Gary Orcam Oliver Magma Ichabod the Deceiver, but my friends just call me Goomy for short.
Oh, so James.
Ah, James. Rolls off the face tendrils. James.
Is that Henry?
Hey, bello.
Henry. Oh, I like it. It sounds tough and rugged. It's like, oh, look out, here comes Henry.
Is that Ed?
Ed. Asante.
Do you know who he reminds me of slightly there? Inspector Sarata.
It's funny you say that, because do you know who does the voice?
No.
The voice of Cartman. Funnily enough, it is actually Cartman. You got it in one. Unbelievably, you got it. It's Trey Parker. Now, the funny thing is that Trey Parker he'd already voiced one of the Despicable Me villains. I think in in Despicable Me 3, he'd actually voiced the villain. So it's interesting that he's come back to do this one. You've got Pierre Coffin, who'd worked on all the others as well, and he always provided the voices of the Minions. He has actually directed this. And obviously resumes doing the voice of the Minions. You've got a cast that also includes Alison Janney, who's sort of narrating the movie to an extent. She's the tour guide of a Hollywood museum who tells the story of the Minions like a group of children. Sidebar, by the way, whoever was involved in writing this and decided that the Hollywood Museum should have George Lucas kept in a glass box, played by and voiced by George Lucas himself, chef's kiss. Genius idea, fantastic, love it. Also, I mean, the idea of doing it this year when George Lucas has actually opened a film museum for Star Wars is really a good idea. Obviously, they couldn't have planned that, but that's what happened. You've also got Jesse Eisenberg and Zoe Deutsch and Jeff Bridges in there as well, and Bobby Moynihan as well from SNL. Bobby Moynihan was also the voice of the Beaver King from Hoppers, you know, the sort of losery king in Hoppers.
Yeah.
It is very funny. First of all, I genuinely think this is the best, Despicable Me movie since the first one. Since the original Despicable Me in, I think, 2009. I think this is the most successful one of all of their movies, Despicable Me and Minions, since that first one. That being said, right, I sat in the cinema watching this, and there were loads of kids around, and their parents, their grandparents, whoever was taken, kind of thing. And I was laughing my ass off. And the kids laughed at some of the Minion-y stuff, but it's actually the film stuff that makes this, because it's set in old Hollywood. So this thing might be, weirdly, one of the sharpest, smartest written family comedies I've ever seen. And I'm talking about in a way that I haven't seen since Mr. Peabody and Sherman in 2014, which is an insanely clever movie. This actually comes close at times, and it comes close by actually going back into the Hollywood well and digging up things like Buster Keaton and Oliver Reed and Orson Welles and the iconic staples of Hollywood. The voyage to the moon, the classic footage of the train going towards the camera and the audience freaking out, things like that. And integrates it into a wholly original story that just happens to feature Minions. Like there's a prolonged, like one of the whole talkie sequences where they establish that the Minions can't really talk is a Humphrey Bogart homage, and they've literally called the character Humphrey. And it's really cleverly done. I don't think the kids enjoyed it as much as me, to be honest, because all the film jokes just went right over their heads. But it's one of those movies where you could show this to your son today. Right, you could show he's 7 now. Is Albert 7 now?
Yeah, 7, nearly 8.
Nearly 8. So you could show this to Albert now, and he's 7. And I guarantee you, 10 years from now, when he's at uni, it might be on or something. He might see it with a friend. He might have a girlfriend who's really into the Minions or something like that. He'll see the movie again. And much like what happened with me and Forrest Gump, loved that as a kid, saw it as an adult, and there's just stuff that makes so much more sense to you. Like, oh wow, I didn't see that gag the first time. I didn't get that way back when. And it's very much one of those movies. This is going to be one of those movies that very cleverly sticks with kids, but also gives them an entirely new experience when they get older and simply learn more about cinema. Once you know what, From the Earth, the Moon and Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin and things like that, when you know what those things are, this movie is going to play entirely different. But until then, you actually get a really bloody good Minions movie. That, obviously, we have to talk about the other thing, by the way, which is the cave that they've removed from this now, because the director has been asked in several interviews now a very sensitive question, which is, so since we know that they didn't sit out the 19th and 20th centuries now, what happened with Hitler? And, it's the kind of question, because the first Minions movie nicely avoided that by putting them in a cave. And now we've got them out in the world in the 1930s looking for a villain to serve. You know what I mean? Like, it's a slippery slope once you get there. You know what I mean? Like, it's the kind of thing you don't want to have to think about, in the same way that, we don't like to think too closely about the Cars universe, for instance, because it asks questions about, things like 9/11 and stuff like that. If there's a car pope, does that mean there was a car bruise? That old argument. This does the same thing, but it simply does it by taking the Minions out of the cave and not establishing, they're another tribe. It's another tribe. That's it. When they did this, they then went somewhere else. That's it. They don't bother doing that. They just leave it hanging. You're like, oh, wow. Like, just at least put a post-credits on it or something. But I will say, I genuinely thought, as I say, this is just the funniest movie this entire extended franchise has made since its very first movie, which I still think is its high watermark. I think the first Despicable Me is fantastic. Like, it was even a really good 3D movie, actually. It was a fantastic 3D movie in 2009, 2010 maybe. But yeah, fantastic. This is the second best Despicable Me movie. It is the best Minions movie. And it's I would say one of my favourite animated movies of this year. Definitely. I mean, it may tap out being the one, but I think for now, I will safely, comfortably say, one of my favourite animated movies of this year. I had an absolute blast with it. I would watch it again in a heartbeat, and I laughed my ass off for the entire 90 minutes that it lasted.
I'm really glad to hear that, because it's definitely on the list of one to watch with my little boy when I get a chance. So, Minions and Monsters, if you want to check it out in cinemas from today. We've got one last movie to look at. We're going to see what Van thought of Citizen Vigilante, which is a action crime kind of movie, I think, Van.
We'll get there. We're
going to find out what it is in just a sec. Stay where you are.
Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day? Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
This episode is brought to you by Starbucks.
That is fire! Whoa, that's good.
This might be the drink of the summer.
Okay, I like this one too. I'm rocking with it, okay.
Try it for yourself. Starbucks Refreshers Concentrates are coming home. Find them in the coffee aisle and make it yours.
Hello and welcome back to one last ride on Offscreen this week, and we are diving into Citizen Vigilante, which is an action crime thriller, apparently. But I'll hand over to Van, who's already seen it.
Yes, I have, for my sins. Citizen Vigilante, which is its second title. Its first title was The Dark Knight. Knight with a K, incidentally. Which, as you can imagine, led to them getting a cease and desist letter from Warner Brothers, politely asking, would you mind terribly not? A little bit of trivia for you as well. Incidentally, the star of this movie was cast as Batman once. Like, this movie stars Armie Hammer. So Armie Hammer, famously in 2007, not only was cast as Batman, not only got fitted for the suit, but actually got to show up to set in Australia for a Justice League movie directed by Frank Miller, and then it got shut down because of the writers' strike. So he really nearly was Batman. Like, they were going full steam ahead with that. For a movie called, I think it was Justice League Mortal, I think it was called. There's a whole documentary about it now. Right, now retitled Citizen Vigilante. This is written and directed. I'm gonna gauge your knowledge based on your reaction to the following statement. This is written and directed by Uwe Boll. Anything there at all? No visceral reaction? No. Okay, right. You clearly live a much more fortunate life than me, definitely. If you've never had to experience an Uwe Boll movie. Uwe Boll is a German filmmaker who is best described as a maniac, politely a maniac. He makes terrible movies, usually based on video games, that he has parlayed into a business that he actually advertises. He actually advertises his business as follows. If you invest your money in my low-budget video game adaptations, they will be crap. No one will like them, but you will make a profit on them. And he actually made a career out of this, so much so that I think it was, again, about 15 years ago, He got tired of film critics endlessly tearing him to pieces and issued a declaration that any film critic who wanted to get in a boxing ring with him was welcome to try. And this happened. This happened. The man actually got in a boxing ring and started beating the crap out of film critics. I'll be really honest. I would love to have a go. I'm not kidding. I would get in the gym for months to have a go. I really would. I'd be calling friends up like, can you teach me this? I would do that in a heartbeat if it meant beating the crap out of the man that made this. Anyway.
I was going to say, that needs a movie made about itself. Like, that in itself is a movie.
There is a documentary about him, and that is part of it.
Good.
I saw it a few
I'm going
years
to
ago.
watch it.
I will find the name of the documentary for it. It's more interesting than any of his movies. Right. He famously did the Alone in the Dark movie, which managed to somehow waste Christian Slater, which is basically a crime against cinema, but sure. So, this movie stars Armie Hammer in his first role since he was rather epically cancelled a few years back, about 4 years ago. Do you remember the Armie Hammer cancellation thing? Do you remember why he was cancelled?
Oh, I can remember it being all over the press, but I can't remember the reason.
Yeah, maybe let's leave it there and let people look that one up on their own. So, let's just let people look that one up and enjoy, because we did. And there's a really, really just completely devoid of self-awareness moment in this movie regarding that. So, he plays, Armie Hammer, in his very first role since cancellation, plays a character named Sanders. At one point he is given the first name Michael, but he's just Sanders. He's an American living in Germany who has simply had enough of, I have to be really careful how I phrase this because the movie is a lot less delicate. He has simply had enough of undocumented migrants coming, it gets bizarre, coming into quote unquote his country. Again, he's an American in Germany, so I don't know what the hell he's talking about. And getting away with sexual assaults and robberies and basically anything GB News would talk about. And he goes around basically as the Punisher killing them. That's the movie. So I'll tell you what, go on, say it. I know you want to say it.
I want to say, this is the one that I watched. You know, the other night when I said, someone said, oh, check this.
Oh, no.
I watched the first 15 minutes and it's gruesome, but then I fell asleep.
I mean, to be fair, had you stuck with it, I'm reasonably sure it will put you back to sleep. Right. I've got a clip for you. This is from about halfway through the movie. This is when he has disguised himself as a police officer, walked up to a judge in broad daylight, drugged him, thrown him in a car and driven him to the middle of nowhere. And this is what he says to him.
The laws are meant to protect the victims, right? It's not the perpetrators. Maybe that's when you lost your North Star. When you started using the laws to help people hurt people. You know, it's not just the perpetrators. You cause collateral damage, Judge. It's people like you letting people get away with rape and murder. Excusing their behavior. Letting people get away with rape and murder.
Yeah, that was definitely the one I watched. I just remember in the first 5 minutes, there was like a scene in a corridor and it was just like guts everywhere. I was like, oh my God, I didn't get any warning of this.
I mean, my favourite thing about that clip, actually, is it perfectly demonstrates how bad the script for this is. You know, you let people get away with rape and murder, blah, 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 and they get away with rape and murder. Yeah, we know that because you just said it twice. I mean, I know you drugged him, but I don't think he's thick. You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of movie. And it is one of the nastiest, the awful, finally cruel, xenophobic pieces of crap I've seen in years. I mean, if the Human Centipede were in any way about politics, it would be this. If you made the Human Centipede political, actually not even if you made the Human Centipede 2 into a political argument, you'd be left with this. It makes no sense. Well, they've tried to make it seem cleverer than it is by editing it into a non-linear story, so it doesn't happen in order. You know what I mean? They think they're doing a Chris Nolan. That's clearly what they think they're doing. The only problem is that even if you lay it out and actually put it in chronological order, and incidentally, you can go on Wikipedia and actually read the plot in chronological order, it still makes no sense. Like, there's a plot. There's what loosely can be called a plot. I think it's more sensationalist, navel gazing, key jangling than anything else. But there's no characters, there's no arcs, be they narrative or character-based arcs, and it's simply doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Like, at no point do they establish, like, oh, sorry, why are you doing this? Like, there's no reason for it to be doing. It makes no sense. And it really just feels like this really hateful movie that this insane German writer-director who has a career now going back, I think it's 25 years, of being an insane German writer-director. It just feels like a really cheap excuse for him to sort of just vocalize his xenophobia. Up to and including, and I can't remember the exact wording of this because it's on my phone, it's being used as the camera right now. There is a title card that ends this movie that is one of the single most offensive things I've ever seen put on a screen. And I've seen everything Miles Teller has ever attempted to act in. So when I tell you that this movie ends with a disclaimer, this movie's dedicated to, and I feel bad for chuckling through this, but I'm chuckling at the insanity of what I'm about to say. This film is dedicated to all of the victims of rape and murder who were failed by our corrupt legal system. You're like, wait, what? You what? That's how you're ending this. You've just given us a Punisher fantasy movie in which you go after brown people for 90 minutes, and you've literally ended it with, this is a, shout out to all the rape victims. Like, what is wrong with you? How dysfunctional are you as a person? Like, what screw is loose in what can only be described as the cacophony of lunacy that is your mind? And that's it. The Armie Hammer of it all is staggering. I mean, I can see why he took it, because it wasn't like he was getting offers. Like, he wasn't. He was out of the business. The man was cancelled. He was running an apartment building in, was it the Seychelles or Mauritius or something? Until he was denied a work permit, forced back to Hollywood, couldn't get a job, and then somehow got this. Which, again, it's not a great look. There is a sequence in this film in which Armie Hammer terrorizes a Muslim migrant family, specifically addressing their teenage son and holding him account to a crime that Armie Hammer is literally accused of having perpetrated. Which is, to put that in context, imagine there was a movie with the same concept as this, in which Gary Glitter went around murdering paedophiles. And then imagine there was a sequence in which he cornered one of them and accused him of all the things that he specifically in the real world had done, or at least had been accused of doing. That wouldn't just be in bad taste, that would be in the single worst taste any human being could come up with. And yet here it is, a movie so deplorable, Germany banned it. Right? Just consider that for a moment. Germany banned this. Not us, Germany. Germany banned this. Now, just as a guess, because this is available on digital platforms exclusively, just as a guess, how do you think Elon Musk rather publicly responded to this movie? You may, if you're listening to this, and you may well know, but Adam may not.
Oh, blimey. How would Elon Musk reply to this movie? I would imagine he probably said it was bad.
Oh, no, he loved it. He made it available for free on X for 2 entire days. Not even kidding. That is a thing that happened this past week. That is a thing that happened this past week. I know this because my mother watched this on X. She watched it on her phone on X. And I never thought there would be a day I would ever see my mother using what I used to call Twitter, but there you go. It is abhorrent. It is just soul-crushingly ugly and horrible and nasty, and I genuinely think that everybody involved in this film in any capacity, anyone distributing it, anything like that, really needs to have, first of all, needs to feel life-changingly ashamed of themselves, and really needs to go away and do some deep thinking. And I mean, I'm aware that using the term deep thinking in any context relating to Uwe Boll is probably a fool's errand, but here we are, and no, this is, first of all, it's one of the worst movies of this year. It's tied with that Tom and Jerry movie we talked about a few weeks back for like the worst thing I've seen this year. But at least the Tom and Jerry movie wasn't trying to make a political point, and this really is.
Well, that is called Citizen Vigilante, if you want to search it out. Okay, let's talk about next week, Van, before we finish this week. What have we got to look forward to?
So one of the ones we've got next week, we've got a documentary about travelling civil rights activists. It's called Shoot the People, which obviously refers to with a camera, not the other way around, not the Citizen Vigilante way. We've got a documentary. We've got a documentary about Gaza called Life Support next week. We have the live-action adaptation of Moana next week, which I will tell you in advance, I don't think we're going to cover, because I don't think I can get to the screen. But the live action Moana is out next week, and it's kind of quiet actually about it. They've been kind of weirdly quite, because it's unnecessary, isn't it? I mean, why are you remaking a 10-year-old film? Like, it doesn't make sense. But most importantly, next week sees the release of a film I have seen that is one of my favourites of the year. I won't tell you much more than that, but mind you, I can't say much more than that because there's still an embargo in effect. One of my favourites of the year. It's a movie, a sequel to a tiny little horror franchise, and it's called Evil Dead Burn. That is out next week.
We will see what Van thinks to all of those on the show next week, of course. But that's all we've got time for this week on Off Screen. We will return next week. Until then, I've been Adam Ball.
I've been Van Connor. Keep it cinematic, and we shall return.